Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, meathead. But I mean, he's smart. He's not. But some of the speed bumps that you're manufacturing, he never had. Almost everything that you've asked me didn't happen to him. Almost everything you've asked me doesn't happen to anybody. I mean, nobody. Just as Josh said, I mean, I was going to bring up the board if he didn't, but he brought up the board because he felt, not guilt, that's the wrong word, but kind of, he used these guys, and he said it politely and professionally. He used them in the beginning, but then, he bought them out for what he offered him, and which was not pennies on the dollar, but maybe dimes on the dollar, and they took it. Now, see, I wouldn't have taken it. I would just say, fine, I'm a shareholder, and I'll wait till the IPO, and I'll make millions. But most people will take the money. The things that you worry about don't happen. They just don't happen. And because there's no guarantee, and he's not advertising he's going public, but those 4 or 5 board members that had between 2 and 7%, when the IPO happens, whenever it happens, will cut their throats. I sold out for tens of thousands or maybe a few 100,000, and my stock could have been worth, 10 million, 20 million, 40 million. But that's not the concern. It's like when you're a little kid in the dark. I was afraid of the dark when I was a little kid. You see shit that is not there. You see shit that's not there. Well, I mean, you're in the dark emotionally, and you see shit that doesn't happen. I mean, you'd think after all my thousands of transactions, some of the shit that you asked me would have happened. But it doesn't. Sometimes I think, I said this a few years ago to Sally, I'm in a different world. I mean, the kids you ask different questions now. The last 10, 15 years, you ask different questions than the kids asked in the 90s and early 2000s. And I get tired of saying it, but the kids in the 90s and early 2000s weren't afraid. Just imagine trying to do this with none of the tools that you have. No fucking webinars. No fucking templates. Nothing. And my stuff didn't start being free on my website till 2008, 7 or 8. So the people that came from 93 to 2007, and we didn't give the slides. We didn't have all those slides. How did all those guys, and Whipple and Dan Locke aren't jealous about it, but as Locke says, you might as well do the fucking deal for him, Mr. Peña. Jesus Christ, you do everything else. Because they were hungry. They were just hungry, But any other comments? He's a super guy. I love his success, but I love all these guys' success. And I'm praying, wishing, and hoping that more of those successes will come out of this group. But certainly not as many as should come out. I mean, as you said, there's no reason. We've got a guy rolling up hospitals in Mexico. That's a tough fucking market. We've got a guy rolling up hospitals, even though I tell him not hospital. Hospital is the quickest way to start them because they're big numbers by definition. We've got a guy in Argentina. Not as successful as Peter, but pretty damn successful. And they're using what they call the Rick Scott model, which is the QLA model, but since he did it the biggest and the best so far. But he's headquartered in Guadalajara. I once had a rich cousin in Guadalajara, long dead. He had a daughter he named his daughter America, United States, and his son Constitution. Who would have fucking thunk it, But they're gone. I mean, but I don't know how he was my cousin. But because from somebody must have got raped going through the Pueblo back 80 years ago or 120 years ago. But the rich Mexicans, and I'm a Mexican, the rich Mexican they're blue bloods. I mean, they look down your nose. They don't, And everybody is a Spaniard, half-ass Spaniard. Everybody's a fucking half-ass Spaniard. They got no proof of it, but they were all a half-ass Spaniard. And the rich in the Philippines, are somehow Spanish. Peña, when I went to the Philippines in 2004, they thought when they saw my name, they thought I was a Filipino because there's a gazillion Peñas there. And anything else about Peter? I mean, it's not easy, but I asked him about being a pleaser, he said he said it more politely, more professional. You got to toughen up, and I don't say it that politely, that professional, but you got to toughen up. No, you got to toughen up if you want to hit the big time. If you don't want to hit the fucking big time and you're on the 12 and 13 year plan, which unfortunately I'm also the father of those deals. And it's not really toughen up. They call ruthless. I mean, I don't have a guy or a gal in 28 years that has ever done anything ruthless by my standards. I mean, the worst person I had, who was kind of like the devil incarnated, wasn't tough. Wasn't tough. When I was teasing Abdul about turning off the electricity, turning off the water, turning off the heat, and he just kind of smiled. But back in the day, that was your first step to eviction. You didn't fuck around. You just, and I told you, Ron LeGrand, who is a mentee of mine, and he's the king of the house flippers, or used to be, and he back in the 70s, and he evicted the sheriffs, were taking the furniture out of this old lady's house on Christmas Eve. He called CBS. They came to film it, and he said, "No, I'm not taking the furniture away. Stack it all up on her lawn." And he set it on fire. And this is my message to my tenants. Crying grandmother on the front step. That's the real world. Now you can't, obviously I got an iPhone. It'd go ballistic, right? But I have trained some tough guys. Questions about, Peter. You all look like your mother died. Yes?
I don't have a question. It's just, it comes back to the basics, is that, follow the steps and practice your Toastmaster and some communication skills and practice. It's just basic.
We sweat and practice more so we don't bleed in combat. Some of you have practiced. My advice, and it's not free, I practice some more. Just this little, these role-playing things that we're doing, some of you are better at it, and some of you are dog shit. It's pretty obvious. I don't, I used to. And I'd ridicule. And I point. That's in the days when people shit their pants, passed out, and pissed their pants. As God is my witness. The most recent is when the guy threw up on Brian Rose a couple years ago. They haven't had a good throw up or shit their pants in a long time. And the guy that shit his pants was a Deloitte partner. And I used to use the Deloitte stationery when I showed it. And finally somebody came, nicely, very polite, because he can't stop me. He wrote me a letter, and he said, "Dan, you use all the big accounting firms. You might get more of them if you didn't talk about them shitting their pants in the seminar." So I stopped. But I was getting older. And so Sally says that I'm a kinder, gentler. Yeah, you're right. It's follow the steps, practice. It's on the Olympics, there's for the 100 meters or the whatever, the steeplechase or the marathon, there's one person gets the gold. And the also-rans are second and third, and it's hard to remember who got the silver or the bronze medal. And how many people have been, practicing the 100-yard dash or the marathons, for 15 years or 18 years, and to win. In this program, 30 months if you do most of the things right, and you can even do it sooner. 5 years if you're an average QLA bot. If you're a slow QLA bot, 6, 7 years. And if you're a retarded QLA bot, 12 or 13 years. But at the end of the day, all those people have more money, a lot more money than they started with. And that's what I used to focus on. I knew, but I always thought, as I do now, of a bigger planet. I thought of a bigger goal because I knew it was possible. And part of the reason I knew it was possible, because some of the organizations that I've been with, that most of the people that I saw at those big organizations, including the military, weren't to sweat off my ass. And as General Vaughn, God love him, Danny, a boy like you could get rich in the civilian world. I wonder, I do often wonder, especially during seminars, if he hadn't have told me that. In 1968, spring of 68, summer of 68, would I be, I'm sure I would have stayed in a career Army officer because I love the military. I love being beaten and I love beating people. And in those days, that's what it was. I love the discipline. And I've told this on YouTube many times. In boot camp, the first nights when you're inducted into the military, you're a little private. At night, you'd hear people crying. Man, a room, 300 people asleep here, crying for their mama. And I told this is a fucking country club compared to living at my house. Because it was. Because my dad wasn't there watching me with a fucking rope on my neck. If you had been beaten more, everybody in this room would be more successful. A few of you have been beaten. They didn't beat you enough. Anything else? Yes, sir. Is this a... Did they say that you look like a Pakistani Elvis Presley when you were young? Did you have hair like that when you were young? God damn. Okay, go ahead.
I actually just noted these 14 points.
Only 14 points?
Yeah, but they are very, very interesting. He said actually he fired all his board members. That was a good thing. World-class chairman. And he said, if you want to be a pleaser, forget about this business. That was a very good point. Then he said he was low esteem, but he knew he's capable to do something. And the other thing I noticed, it took 1.5 years to do a deal. I think which is, for us, if we don't...
Well, you've already done a bunch of deals, so...
Yeah, but just pointing up. And the other point, he said, this QLA opens my eyes. And the most important thing I actually felt about him, and when he said it, I feel like I am flying, and he was very excited. He raised above the chair. Then that was very interesting. And he said, I am happy. What I enjoy the most, I am a leader of organization of 700 people, which is really good. And the other thing he said, everyone knows him in Hungary, basically, which is a pride for him as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the most interesting things for me was, like he said, now I act as I am someone, so which is good. Communication skills, I think most of us, we have the communication problems except Shaz. So I think that was the most, he said like he hired a teacher and is practicing, which is I think a very good lesson for us. And the other more important things which actually says in QLA anyway, enthusiasm and belief, motivation. And one of the things I really liked about him, he said, I had a lot of rejections, but never stopped.
Correct.
And I hired the teacher. So while he was talking, to be honest with you, I decided I'm going to hire a teacher as well too, so I can practice my English as well.
Okay, well, you don't need anybody to practice combing your hair. But those are all very valid points. Peter, even after he did his first deal, His communication skills were lacking. But he wanted to be, one of his goals was to be somebody in Hungary. And well, he is now. He says he knows all the important people he got. And he does. He does. And of course now his deal flow is different. He has the fucking government calling him. Better than KPMG. He's got the government calling him. And and as he said from his last webinar, which I reminded him of when he laughed, you said that when you're being interviewed and they're asking you these questions, what are your answers? Very clever things. Okay? And I helped him work on that back a few years ago. But some of the kids, and it works, I mean, some of the template statements are great as answers to the press, to if you're being interviewed, or when you're being interviewed. But he has blossomed under success. Now, everybody grows, but not everybody blossoms. And as you pointed out, he sat up straight when he said that, because it's important to him. I didn't tease him on the tape about more lead in his pencil. Got 2 more kids, but there's a high percentage of the guys that make it, sometimes to the chagrin of the women, because a lot of the gals are long in the tooth to be having kids. But everybody says it's God's blessing. Fine. I'm not going to argue with God about whether it's a blessing or not. But and it's because you feel good. You feel better about yourself. Now, I haven't not felt good about myself in a long, long time. I tell the story. I'm crying, and the dog's licking the tears off my cheeks on the staircase, and I'm drinking Jack Daniels. And I figured out, because in those days I used to believe very vehemently, just like he believes, that goals should be tied to your age. And I'm 30 or 31, and I'm nowhere near my 40-year goals. And I go, fuck, this is never going to happen. And my 3 great Danes were licking me. Not dissimilar when they were licking the blood off me the other night. And I said, I got to do something. And so that's when I went, and by good fortune, I found Jim Newman, and the rest is history. And he said, and I believe, and I agree, you've been a big hitter in a small pond in the Mexican community. Everybody, Latino guy of the year, 1981, all this stuff. But you can be in the other arena, in which I did, and you were frustrated about it. And so I found that, I was looking for that recognition. I'm still pissed off. I did arguably the best financial transaction in the world in 1984. I got no recognition for it. Taking nothing, taking it public in 99 days. 200 million. I got no recognition whatsoever. Best transaction. So I was looking for that recognition as well. I didn't realize, just as I had a chip on my shoulder about guys that went to Oxford, or guys that went to Harvard, or guys that went to Yale, especially the Yaleys. After I fired a half dozen of them, I realized that wasn't important. But he is well educated, okay? So he didn't have that, but he had he wanted everybody to like him. He was a pleaser. And now he's got all these people pleasing him, and he's making a lot of money. And he has transformed into, he wants to make healthcare world class in Hungary. And that's a big stretch. I mean, that's a big fucking goal. It's not like saying making German healthcare world class, or to make it world class in Hungary, a former communist country. Anything else? Good points, Abdul. Yes, sir.
I think you've said it about 50 billion times, but Jim Rohn summed it up quite nicely, which was, don't wish it were easy, wish you were better.
Correct.
In a roundabout way. But, I mean, and again, you've made it very clear in terms of, obviously, financial success. But how important do you think it is to have a sense of purpose to make QLA work?
Correct. Well, my purpose was even though it was what Jim Newman used to call under the skin goal, or the modern day psychiatrists said sub rosa goal, Latin, is that I want to do $1 trillion bucks, a million millionaires. That was my purpose. It wasn't a purpose that I articulated until the last 3 or 4 years. But it was my purpose. Otherwise, I mean, because there seemed not decades, but years surely that, I mean, it was hard to sell QLA. It's easy now, but it's like I said on a TV program not too recently, actually recently, I'm an overnight success after 28 years. But I've been around 28 years. And I've been around longer than that, but I mean, doing this with you guys, I've been around 28 years. I thought that I shot my wad in the early 2000s because my success through you started to dry up. I didn't think it was a anthropological thing that Homo sapien was running out of gas, which I do now. And it's easier now, not just because you have the tools. Just like climate change is cyclical, you're in the right part of the cycle to make tons of money because of low interest rates, because of the mentality of the market. And we were not in that right cycle in the early 90s and 90s and the early 2000s, but we did it the old-fashioned way, out of sheer will. Now you've got, tools that are terrific. And people ask me, why didn't you change a lot of the tapes from 96, 97, 98? Because nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. The only thing, the additional we have now is crowdfunding. And we've had some big successes, i.e. Marcus Bauer, and crypto. And I'm not a proponent of crypto, so I'm not going to do a tape or a webinar on it. But the stories, the anecdotes that Roberto alluded to and that we've taught you this past week are the secrets. Now, I make fun of people that call them tips, etc., but you're getting tips that are current day in the trenches now. We've got pre-corona, corona, and kind of the ass end of corona now. And what we've seen is it's easier. Now, I don't know if anybody in the YouTube believes that it's easier now. I believe it because I see the stats, I see the numbers that were roughly 100% better vis-a-vis closing deals and creating wealth for you, which means creating wealth for my $1 trillion number, which means creating wealth for the planet. And before I had decided anything about politics, I never equated the two. But I know, like I took a piss this morning, that I know how to create jobs and bring money. Whether it resonates or not, that's a whole other thing. Okay, whether they shoot the messenger and don't listen to the message, that's a whole other thing. I'm not going to change the way I deliver, so that's not going to happen. So they either accept the message or they don't. And in the next 12 months, we'll figure that out. But even if they don't resonate, it doesn't resonate with them, I will create a lot more wealth to you guys when you pull the trigger, not if you pull the trigger. When you pull the trigger. Okay, YouTube, speaking of pull the trigger, go fuck yourself.